Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breakthrough Performance Podcast. I am your host, Coach Evan, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday, or whatever day it is when you're listening to this. Although I record it on a Wednesday, you do not have to listen to it on Wednesdays. You can listen to this podcast Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, or even Wednesday. I hope you're having a great day, everybody. Today, one thing I would love to talk about is how do we progress on each movement? What is a 4-week block? How do I pace myself to get to my goals within the 4-week block? And what does that actually mean for my training that we do break up the blocks this way? So what I've done is I have put together a mock workout. I'm not going to work out, but we're going to act as though I'm working out. And I'm going to just talk through a little bit of what I would be doing if I were to approach this training session, how I would plan my weights or even the intensity week to week. And I hope you guys can get something out of that so you can understand a little bit better of how to pace yourself in the gym, when to go super heavy, when to go super light, all that kind of thing. All right. All right. So I have this workout right up here. If you guys are listening to this and you can't exactly see, that's totally fine. I'm going to talk through what I'm doing, obviously announce so you can hear. So that's totally okay. But if you have the option to, I would probably recommend watching this one just so you could see the programming as I'm going through it because it'll make a little more sense that way. All right. So, me, Coach Evan, not Coach Evan. I'm Athlete Evan, right? I'm in there. Okay. So, I see this day. What am I thinking? Well, first I want to go through and look what exercises can I progress here and how can I progress them over the 4-week block, right? Well, side plank bridge, okay. All right, me, personally, I would start off with no weight, add a little bit of weight each time, cool. I look at med ball slam, awesome. That's going to be progressed through added power, right? You're not necessarily going to go up in weight because what we're looking to train there is power. Single arm pull down, that is a strength movement, so I'm looking to add weight each time. B block, we're getting to strength focus. Okay, squat, I can add weight. Bench, I can add weight. Plank, I personally can add weight to that, but if you guys can't, if you feel like you need to do this on an elevated surface, a great way to progress that would be lowering that elevation. Another great way to progress that would be maybe just focusing on your form a little bit more, right? Like when you start that, you might have a really hard time shaking a ton, maybe even need to take a break. If you can just progress by, maybe we got 45 seconds on there, it says 12 reps, you know what I mean? If you can go from doing 20 seconds, then taking a rest for a few, and then going back in there, if we can just push that period where you have to take a break further along that 45 seconds, right? Okay, I can make it to 15 today without taking a rest. Cool. Next time, let me make it to 20. That is obviously a great way to progress that. And then when we get into our C block, okay, same thing. We got weights here. We can progress it, all right? It's always easier to progress things when you have weights on them. That's one of the reasons I love using weights for training. Obviously, it's most of what we do at the gym because, again, it's the easiest to kind of progress and track what you're actually doing, right? Something like a broad jump. It's kind of hard to really track a increase in intensity or in force output. So weights make it a lot easier for that if it fits what you're doing, right? All of your goals aren't going to be strength related. A lot of them are going to be movement related. A lot of them are going to be speed or power or even mobility. So we have different ways to progress those as well. All right. So let's go through this workout right here. Been getting a lot of questions in the gym about this recently, and a lot of the times sessions are kind of packed and I can't really devote like 10, 15, 20 minutes to having this conversation with you guys. So I think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of you. So I would go side plank. All right. Again, when I see week 1, 2, 3, and 4, I like to think about this way. And I'm going to type this on here. Right. Week 1, I'm always going to look at that as an intro week. Week 4, I'm always going to look at that as a last push. So now we have weeks 2 and 3, which are really just going to be transitions between your intro week and your week 4. So I'm going to put right here week 2 as intro plus weight, right? So we're looking to make a little bit of progression off of that first week. You're getting comfortable. You're getting comfortable with the movements, so we're ready to push it a little bit, but we're not at that end phase of the block where you can really, really push. You might be able to really, really push, but again, we are looking to set us up well to have a great week 4, which is going to be that last push. Now, I'm going to be speaking about all of these as if training's your life, right? It's obviously not for really anyone. Very, very, very small percentage of the population trains like it's their job. However, I was doing that for a bit. So I'm going to talk to you guys, with the full 100%. This is how I'm optimizing my training. And you can take pieces from that, and then you can just apply it with, the complications of your life and your schedule. So if you miss a week, that's fine. You miss a day, that's fine. You're just going to then imagine this as week 1, 2. If you miss week 3, week 4 is going to be that last push, right? I think you guys will understand that. So again, we are going from intro week to our last push week, and we are just going to bridge the gap between here. So week 3 is going to be big push, not everything you got. Okay. So let's go through this a little bit. Again, side plank bridges, even if it's an exercise I've done many, many times, if it's new on the program, I'm going to treat it as introducing myself again to that movement pattern, right? I've done a million side plank bridges in my life, but I haven't done them in a while. So I would treat this as, let me reintroduce it. Let me get that movement pattern down again before I can really push, right? And I'll talk more at the end about fatigue management and all that, and that's going to really, really play a role here in why it's so important to have this kind of like intro week. Again, your daily life and schedule is going to complicate training a ton. Don't let this make it more complicated. These are just tools for if you're a little unsure of how to manage, okay? Side plank bridges. Me, personally, I would go no weights. All right. Medicine ball slam. Here, we don't really add weight. We never really write anything down here. But I want you guys to make sure you're using the same medicine ball each time. Okay. Now, the reason why I say that is because we don't want to have so many variables in our exercise week to week that it kind of gets in the way of what we're actually shooting for. And again, with the medicine ball slam, the thing we're focusing there more than anything is going to be power. Absolutely 100%. Med ball slam is a power exercise. You might get a ton of cardio out of it, which is awesome, but that doesn't distract from, again, the focus there being power, right? How do we generate more power? It's simple. You just try harder. I mean, that's really it. You just slam as hard as you can. Now, med ball slam is an exercise where you kind of can do that every single time. It's not like maxing out on a squat where it's going to be super, super fatiguing. And that's part of why it's in the A block, because it's an exercise with low load. It's going to be a little easier on the body, and it's going to be easier for you to get into, okay? So here, I'm not writing anything down. You know what? I am going to write something down. I'm going to write that I used a 6-pound medicine ball. Okay. Now I'm going to use that for all 4 of these weeks. Only thing I have to do now is just try harder and harder each time. Again, probably one where you can try as hard as possible on every single day, and you're going to be totally fine. You're not going to accumulate a ton of fatigue from that. Single arm pull down. Now, this one is going to be a strength exercise. So I'm looking to progress this week to week. I'm looking to still, week 4, all right, I have to push it a ton. But this is another exercise that's not going to be terribly fatiguing on the body. So I can start off with a 10, have it be really hard, but I still want to give myself room to progress. So I would probably look at it this way. I would probably look at I start with a 10 referring to just the number on the cable stack. We've talked about this many times. Most people and I have spoken about this many times on the training floor, that when you see a cable stack, don't try to think about how many pounds you're doing, because cable to cable is going to have a ton of variety. Now, if you're using the same cable, you can probably think about it that way. But, for me, sometimes I'm training at different gyms. I'll start with a cable stack at one gym, go to another, and I am getting vastly different resistance from each cable. So try not to get too caught up in, okay, I'm doing 100 pounds here, I'm doing 110 here. Again, just little tangent there about the weight of the cable stack. So I'm going to start off with a 10. Week 2, I am, if you could take a guess, going to try to go to an 11, so on and so forth, right? Now, one more thing there is that when I pick that 10, the thought process going through my head is, okay, what's a weight I could do today? All right, I can do a 10, and it's still challenging me to grow. It's still giving me a stimulus to adapt, but it is challenging, and I have room to grow. You want room to grow from week 1. If I were to say anything specifically in your mind about the first week of a block, it would be that you are going to start with weights that you feel comfortable with, that give you room to grow, okay? Because that's when we're going to really do all of our learning and getting used to any of these movements, all right? So I start with a 10, and I think 14 would be crazy today, but maybe I can do it week 4, right? So in my head, I make a little mental note, or even on a piece of paper, I write it down. I plan for the week 4 with 14, all right? Now it's simple. I just have to try to go from 10, maybe I go 12 next week, and then 13 the next week, and then there we go. Week 1 is 10, 12 week 2, 13 week 3, and then I finish off with a 14. Now, honestly, most of our strength exercises are going to follow that similar format, all right? So let's go into squat now. Now, I'm not getting too specific with what I'm writing down as the variation, because I don't think it's too important to get into the nitty-gritty of that here, because, again, it's kind of all going to be pretty similar if you're doing a squat. So let's go into squat. Now, if I wanted to finish off at 400 pounds, right, again, thinking week 1, what am I finishing off with week 4? I make a mental note. 400 would be a reach goal. I might not be ready to do it week 1, but I can get there. Okay, again, attainable within the 4-week training block, but it's not the first week that I'm going to be doing that, because it would be a little crazy, right? You shouldn't feel ready to do the weight you're planning for week 4 on week 1. So I'm going to start off with 400. I would probably pick 315, right? If you're going to do 400 for 10, 315 is going to be a little easier of a number for you, obviously, but it's still going to be work, and it's still going to count as far as a growth stimulus is concerned. Now, that might be a little light. I tend to take lighter week 1 and then make bigger jumps, but that's not everyone, right? You could easily do 365 here, okay? Now, if I was going to go 365, obviously, what am I going to do next week? Probably going to go about 380. All right, so we're going up from the week 1 to something a little more challenging, but I still have a ton of room to grow because I want to finish off at that 400 on week 4. Week 3, you guessed it, 390. All right, so we have a 15-pound jump here, a 10-pound jump here, another 10-pound jump for the week 4. All right, bench press is going to follow the same exact format, but I'll give you numbers that are make a little more sense for the bench press. We don't have anybody doing 400 pounds for 10 on the bench press at our gym. I don't know many people that do that. That would be a very impressive number. So let's say I really, really, really want to finish off with 150 pounds. Right. Again, I'm thinking week 4 is going to be 150. So then I would probably want to start off with a weight that, again, you could probably guess by now what I'm going to say, is manageable, still something for you, but you have that room to make those jumps week to week. Now, I really like a 10 to 15-pound jump. That's typically what I think most people should plan for, right? If you're, maybe you're on the lighter end of bench press weights, like maybe you really want to finish with 50 pounds or 60 pounds, these jumps are going to look a little different. So you're not going to be taking the 15-pound jumps, obviously. Maybe it's more like a 5, all right? We want to think a little bit in percentages there. So I would probably start off with a 125. Then I would probably be thinking about a 130. Then probably a 140. And there you go. All right, same thing. These numbers are a little off, but that's okay. There we go. 120, 130, 140, and 150. That's how I would do that there. Now for the plank, this movement, we aren't necessarily progressing all the time, and that's totally okay. Now you can by adding weights, and I would follow that same kind of format here, but with something like a plank, it's not so important that we're pushing the weight super, super heavy as it is that we're just getting through it, right? Planks are a really important movement, but it's not one that you're going to try to push everything you got. Once you have enough strength to hold a plank for a solid 45 seconds, you're in a pretty good spot. There are exercises we do where you're going to be loading up the abs a little bit. Think about like a weighted leg raise or a hanging knee raise with a weight or something like that, or even a pullover with a weight. You're going to follow a very similar format there, obviously with just different numbers. So let's move on to our C block. Now, the C block, if you're training with us, you'll know that the C block follows a slightly different format than these other exercises do. You'll note that the C block can vary a lot between person to person. If your fitness is super, super high, this might not feel like a ton of cardio for you. Whereas if you're a little newer to the gym or maybe just having a little bit of a hard time with it, this is cardio, right? So we can really progress it by going two ways. We can get more reps in, we can get more weight in. Now, because we're looking for a little bit of a cardiovascular stimulus with this, we can pick either one, right? So here's what I can do. I can plan to use the same weight each time. I just put arms, just something random there. 30, 30, 30, and 30. And I can make a little mental note of how many reps I get in of each block, right? So, obviously we are more than happy to write these down for you. You're more than welcome to write them down yourself. It's going to be the same thing there if you're going to be going through the reps because you're focused a little more on cardio, right? So I would say, okay, I got 12 reps today of arms in the 40 seconds. Let me try to get 13 next week. Let me try to get 14 week 3, finish off with week 4. You wouldn't necessarily plan this out week to week because it's a little more effort based. So you just plan to work a little harder each time. Okay. Now, obviously, if I was really just, all right, my cardio is at a good spot, I just want to get big arms, you're going to do the same thing we were talking about on the other lifts, right? You would say, okay, well, if I want to finish off with a 50, I'm probably going to go 45 here, 40 here, 35 here, right? Lunges are going to be the same exact approach, right? Same exact approach. Either we're doing this for cardio and you're looking for more reps, or we are looking for more weight so that we could focus on that muscular hypertrophy, which is a very fancy word for saying muscle growth. Same thing. So I'm just going to put the same exact numbers. Now, the only way that we would really think about getting more reps in with a farmer's carry would be if you're really struggling to hold the weight the whole time with a week 1, maybe the weight's a little heavy for you to do for the whole time. You can just think, okay, when I did this week 1, I needed to take 2 breaks within each 40-second block. Let me try to reduce that each time. That would be a great way to. Obviously, with a farmer's carry, weight's pretty important. So I would probably recommend taking that same approach there as well. Okay, so this is exactly what would be going through my mind for this kind of workout. Okay. Now, with the week 4, you might think, okay, well, week 4 is going to be pretty difficult, right? And yes, that's exactly the case. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. I wrote last push here for a reason. Because week 4 is a big push, when you come back into week 1, you might feel a little shot from the previous week. You might be a little extra sore. Any nagging thing might be a little more nagging, right? You're not exactly fresh. So, the intro week also serves as a great way for us to, we use the word deload, right? A little bit of a way to reduce the total strain on the body from our workouts, right? So take advantage of that week one to kind of breathe, all right? And then we ramp that intensity back up throughout the block. And really, what we want to be getting here is this kind of like line going up, okay? You want your intensity to go up throughout the block, and you want to make it so that you can finish at a high point, take a little bit of a breather, and then finish at an even higher point the next block. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this whole thing again, but if I had to just repeat this block, I'm just going to go through squat real quick. Okay, I crushed 40. It was extremely difficult. I'm approaching this same block again. What am I going to do? Well, I can think about exactly what I did the previous block, this one I have up right now that we just went through, and I can think, okay, let's shoot for 410 this time. So then I would just go in. I would shift these all to the left. I would try to start with my week 2 weight, and I would try to end with a little heavier weight, right? So 410, okay? And that's kind of exactly how I would be approaching that. And I hope that that's helpful for understanding kind of like what progression looks like long term. It's really easy to get caught up in each workout has to be as hard as possible, and then you kind of don't make as much progress when you look back. Because we need to have in mind, again, the progression week to week, the progression long term. Okay? Again, I hope this was super helpful for you guys. I know that if I didn't kind of have this knowledge and foresight from my experience in powerlifting training, that I would be having a much harder time making progress in the gym. So I hope that you guys could take something from this. And yeah, that's all we got. Thank you so much for listening, guys. If you have any questions about this, obviously, as always, hit us up, right? We'd love to talk about this stuff. And if you guys have any suggestions, questions for the podcast, anything like that, please shoot them on over. Love to talk about it, all right? Hope you guys have a great day. Goodbye.